Good afternoon. My name's Miller, and welcome to the Addiction Show. We're real honored today to have Rachel Askowitz Purse as our guest from the Sandler Center at the University of Miami. And Rachel's going to introduce herself and tell us who you are, what you do at the U, and a little about the Sandler Center.
Sure, of course. So my name is Rachel Askowitz Purse. I serve currently as
That's a new name, though, right?
New name, yes. Newly married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I serve as an assistant dean of students and director of the Sandler Center for Alcohol and Other Drug Education at the University of Miami. I've been in this role for about a year. And the Sandler Center is housed within the Dean of Students office. It's comprised of myself, graduate students, and undergraduate peer educators. And we educate the university's campus on alcohol and other drug-related issues in a variety of ways: programs, events, workshops, trainings, etc.
Good introduction. Better than I could have done. So glad you took that mantle. So you show up in the morning and your people show up. Walk us through a typical day.
Yeah. So one of the best parts of my job is there is no typical day. It's really different every day depending on what we're doing. But typically I will come into the office. I will talk with our undergraduate peer educators who really are the heart and soul of the Sandler Center. We'll talk about, what issues they're seeing on campus, how they want to address those issues, and really just dive into planning all of our events and programs. I'm often meeting with campus partners, or I'm joining our peer educators in the center of campus to do education. But it's really, a wide variety of days.
I'm going to ask you a question I know the answer to, but maybe some people out there don't. Tell us what a peer educator is.
Sure. So these are undergraduate students who work for the Sandler Center. It is a paid position, and they work 10 hours a week. And they really just promote the messaging of the Sandler Center and serve as a resource to other students to connect them to the resources on campus.
And who was Sandler?
So Sandler, William Sandler, was the former dean of students at the university who originally created the Center for Alcohol and Drug Education in the 90s.
And your charge is on harm reduction.
Yes.
Tell us about harm reduction.
Sure. So this is really important to us. Harm reduction really is what we do, and it's the framework that we use through all of our programs, events, and messaging. So harm reduction really is not necessarily the opposite, but is an opposition to abstinence-only education. That would be telling students, never drink alcohol, never do drugs, etc. We don't say that. Obviously, of course, we acknowledge that there are students who do not consume alcohol, don't use drugs. We totally are, support that. But our messaging really focuses on, like you said, harm reduction. So if you choose to use, how can you do so in a way that's as safe as possible, and minimizing harm to yourself and to others. And that really is the core of our messaging.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. No. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So what keeps my visual right now is over spring break.
Mm-hmm.
6 West Point cadets in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
No blame, no judgment. They're here in South Florida. They wanted to party for a night. And so they bought a little cocaine. Mm-hmm. It's done all the time. And they thought everything would be fine. And normally, historically, it has been. Mm-hmm. And this time, not only wasn't it fine, but ambulances, one after another, all overdosed. These guys, their life has changed forever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what West Point is going to do as a result, but certainly the repercussions go far and wide.
Absolutely.
And just from what historically would be a night of partying, good, bad, I don't know whether these people were addicts or not addicts. They chose to use for one night. Mm-hmm. What that used to, people could get away with that. Mm-hmm. Now they can't get away with it. You hear stories about edibles and so when you're promoting harm reduction, how does the new reality of everything being laced with fentanyl, how does that play in, or how do you have to change or adjust your message?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had already started to focus on fentanyl-laced drugs even before this West Point incident. And that definitely further solidified the need to talk about it. And especially because, Miami is definitely a location for spring break. Our students are going on spring break, in addition to Ultra Music Festival, which also happens to take place in March, where a lot of our students attend, and a lot of people that attend the festival use drugs. So it was really important to us that we talk about this possibility, the risks of overdose and fentanyl-laced drugs. So we did an entire campaign actually throughout the month of March focusing on this issue that we hope to continue, in future semesters. And the harm reduction messaging, I won't go into, the laundry list, but essentially our messaging is, how can you reduce risk if you choose to use?
Give me a few examples, Rachel.
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're preaching to the choir.
Yes.
How do we reduce risk?
Yes. So just a few little tips that we would give as part of our messaging would be, don't use alone. If you choose to use, have folks around you. Carry Narcan. Know where Narcan is available. Always call for help if you're in a situation where yourself or someone else requires medical attention. We often talk about our medical amnesty on campus, our medical amnesty policy on campus, which encourages students to call for help even if they themselves are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That policy protects them. So we talk about that. We talk about, of course, staying hydrated. We would point to where the water stations are at the Ultra Music Festival. Yes.
Make sure you're, if there is a problem that it's okay to call
Yep.
for help.
Yep.
All right.
Narcan.
So the Narcan, let's talk about Narcan for just a minute.
Yes.
Is it allowed to be distributed on campus, Narcan?
So we're actually in the process right now of figuring that out. And so we hope, we as in the Sandler Center hope that we can bring Narcan onto campus in some sort of fashion. And this is an initiative that we're currently, literally right now, trying to figure out.
So there is a conundrum where historically a university or an institution,
Yes.
we're not going to throw any daggers today anywhere, but they would say, wait a minute, if you make Narcan available, the antidote available, then you're promoting the use. That thinking is changing.
Yes, thankfully.
So Narcan, for our audience, looks like Afrin or a nose spray.
Yes.
It separates the opioid. So a person that looks dead, they're overdosing, flatline. It's truly a miracle. I know many people who carry it.
Yep.
A couple of spritzes up the nose, and they're up, and you have to get them help because it lasts for about 40 minutes, and they're not going to wake up very happy. But at least they're going to wake up. They're going to be alive. So, and if a young person or a person that is not using takes the Narcan and puts it up the nose, absolutely, there's no harm,
right?
Nothing bad.
Yep.
So Narcan is truly a miracle. I know that the Ultra Festival, that Miami Recovery Project, passed out Narcan and ran out.
Wow.
They ran out.
Wow.
And they actually went to a New Hope in Homestead, a treatment center, and other places to corral some more.
Wow.
Because the need was so there.
Yeah.
So I like to think that your efforts and these efforts saving lives. We know if somebody dies, we can measure that.
Sure.
If a life is saved, it's harder to measure because
Absolutely.
they didn't die, so
Yeah.
they're not going to meet that statistic.
Yes.
On this show, our logo is the starfish, and we use that because of the story. The man's walking along the beach, and there's starfish everywhere in the sand, and he comes across a little girl, and she's throwing them back one by one into the water. Yeah. And he says, "Little girl, what are you doing?" And she says, "Well, the tide went out, and all the starfish got stuck in the sand, and the sun's going to burn them up unless they get back in the water. So I'm throwing them back one at a time."
Yeah.
And the man says, "Little girl, there's thousands of starfish. It's just not going to make a difference." And she picks up another starfish and throws it back and says, "It did for that one."
Yeah.
Right. So I appreciate your, namaste for the service that you're doing. You're not, fortunately, anymore a lone voice on campus. Tell us a little bit uh, about you recovery.
Yes. So, like you said, thankfully, we are not alone. Alcohol and other drug education needs to be a collaborative effort, especially on a college campus. So, U Recovery is a student organization, really just trying to create a safe space for students who are in recovery or know someone in recovery. It really is open to anyone. We're really trying to increase our collaborative efforts, and they've been instrumental in trying to bring Narcan on campus.
So a shout out to Jan Sokol Katz.
Yes, the faculty advisor.
Thank you very much for your work, Jan. So now we have you doing your thing and U Recovery doing their thing. And then there's, I understand, a new hire that's going to start.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So the University of Miami Counseling Center, who is also a very frequent partner of ours, they provide obviously counseling services to University of Miami students. They have just hired a new alcohol and other drug specialist, AOD specialist, who will be starting in just a few weeks. And I really hope that, the goal is to really bolster our support for students in recovery, really, again, strengthen the connection between the Sandler Center, the Counseling Center, and U Recovery, and just make sure that students have all the support that they need.
In the opposite of addiction is connection. And so these wheels are spinning and that's connecting.
Yes.
In addition to that, I understand you had a recent meeting with Tommy Guerra of Miami Recovery Project.
I did.
And just a shout out to Tommy and the work that they're doing.
Yes.
Miami Recovery Project, which is mainly funded by Thriving Mind through Department of Children and Families, is positioned uniquely as a hub of a wheel for all the other spokes at the U, at FIU, at the treatment centers, at AHEC, at whoever else needs to connect at the county to get this wheel starting to turn to fight back against the scourge of addiction and abuse and mental health issues, et cetera. So as a result of that meeting, what are you doing in August?
Yes. So I'm very excited about this partnership with the Miami Recovery Project. And thank you so much for facilitating that connection. So in August, we will be hosting an Overdose Awareness Day on the university's campus. More details to come, but we're really excited to be doing this for the first time on campus.
That's super exciting.
Yes.
Now, if somebody has a problem on campus, I understand now there's a place, a website that they can go for help.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yes.
And that's Cains Care for Cains.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. So Cains Care for Cains is more than just a website. It's really a message that is spread across the university, amongst students, amongst departments, that Cains care for each other. And it's an attitude that we have on campus. But it also is a website so that if a student themselves is experiencing an issue, alcohol and other drug related, mental health related, regardless, or someone they know is experiencing an issue, one of their friends, roommates, they can fill out an anonymous form online. It will go to the appropriate person on campus, depending on what the issue is. And that student will be reached out to and connected to resources, obviously depending on what the issue is. So Cains Care for Cains.
I know people going back the university that their parents went and their parents, and it's generational, and it's always been a family at the U.
Agreed.
At the U.
Yes.
And the fact that now there's a tangible, button that you can click. What is the button saying?
Submit a concern.
Submit a concern.
Yeah.
Cains Care for Cains. Submit a concern.
Yep.
And they can. And that's effective. It's
absolutely. You will get help very quickly, and you'll get connected to the appropriate department on campus or person.
So let's get back to some of your staff or peer peer representatives.
Yes.
So have they been trained and certified as peers? Is that the procedure that?
So we have our own very intensive training
Nice.
for peer educators. It covers a variety of topics. Obviously, we want them to be knowledgeable in alcohol and other drug topics, but we also want to make sure that they have, skills in active listening, public speaking, facilitation, marketing, and communication. And so
Do they need to have lived experience? Do they need to have come from the bottom and then
right.
show me a hero, show you a tragedy? These are people that have kind of beat the odds.
They don't need to, but they do need to demonstrate a strong desire to support other students and just, better help the campus community.
So we talked about a typical day. When you come in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
is there like news from the day before? Is there stuff that happened last week? Is things that are brought to your attention? How is all that?
Yeah.
How do you function as a filter for all the ways that information, good and bad, is coming to you, so you can then delegate it back out? How does that work?
Yeah, I really try to create a safe space where my students feel comfortable coming to me and telling me what they're seeing on campus, what they're hearing.
Give me an example of something that somebody would see or hear on campus that would either be alarming or gleeful.
Yes. So something that comes to mind, this was maybe a few months ago. A few of my peer educators had noticed that students were selling drugs via Snapchat. And so, I wouldn't know that.
I wouldn't know that either.
So I'm not on Snapchat.
I mean, Facebook we could work with, but
I don't think they're
TikTok,
using
I don't know.
Facebook.
Right. Okay. And Snapchat.
So, yeah. So this was brought to my attention. It was something I would not have known otherwise. And then that gave us the ability to address it, because they felt comfortable sharing it with me. That's also the power of peer education, because they are seeing it amongst their peers. Whereas, like I said, I would never see it.
And how do you close that down? Or how do you, when you see that, okay, Snapchat, the drugs and how do you address it?
It's usually a coordinated effort. Me being situated within the Dean of Students office, I have close connections with others on campus, including the Dean of Students, UMPD, the UM Police Department, and others within the Division of Student Affairs.
Do they go have you arrest the person or have prayer meetings with them, or how do they alleviate?
Totally depends on the situation. But everyone's going to do everything that they can to make sure that students are safe. And that there's no illegal activities happening, but also nothing that violates our student conduct policies. But then from the Sandler Center side, we're going to address that through our programming, our messages. We might post about it on our own social media.
So you talk about your own social media. What does that involve?
Yeah, so we mostly spread our messages through Instagram. Our Instagram's at UM Sandler Center. At UM Sandler Center. And
say it again.
At UM Sandler Center.
Okay.
Yes. We do also have Facebook and other forms of social media, but Instagram is what's most popular among students.
So did you put out an alert that things are going on, or things to look for, or is there a place if I went to USF and a few mango seasons ago. and then they had you could take your drug and they turn in a little piece of it, something you bought, and they would give you a number, and then they would post within a couple of days in the campus newspaper where they would put what you said the drug was. You said it was THC, and then they would come back to be rat poison or whatever. Is there any kind of a program, a drug education or drug identification program on campus?
No, we don't really have, unfortunately, the capacity to do that at this moment in time. Obviously, it's something that we can, look to for hope maybe in the future. But it's definitely something we talk about is counterfeit pills, and thinking that something is one thing and it's in fact something else.
Tell us about the shift in, I know historically first off, there's a stigma of drug use, for drug use historically.
Yeah.
But we've buried too many people now for that stigma to continue, and both of us are breaking down those doors in the stigma.
Yeah.
And the University of Miami, among other institutions, historically, I think it's fair to say, kind of like we don't see a problem here.
Mhm.
And now things have shifted.
Yeah.
To where we have you here from the Sandler Center.
Mhm.
We've got you recovery. We've
Yep.
got a new person, AOD person starting.
Yep.
So is that from the top down? Is that the bottom up? I mean, there's just I can almost hear like grunts and groans. The university is moving
Yeah.
in a positive direction to save lives and for us to be a safe campus.
Yeah.
Is there still work to be done? Is there
Yeah,
talk to me about how
yeah.
that how it's shifting and
Yeah.
how you're involved in that and helping that shift.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of moving parts here.
Sorry.
So no. I think it's an important topic. So I think it comes from both bottom up, top down. So bottom up first, our students are very invested in their own health and safety and the safety of other students. For example, this Narcan initiative really came right from the students themselves. First, from my peer educators telling me that this is something they wanted to see on campus. And then actually there was a petition that was sent around campus started by U Recovery,
Nice.
where students expressed interest in having Narcan on campus. So that's really, just goes to show how much the students very much care about this. But I also do think that it comes from the top down as well. We're very lucky to have a president at the university whose background is in public health. So I think the university
Dr.
gets
Frank.
it. Yes, Dr. Julio Frank.
Right.
And so, I think it's coming
Shout
from
out
all
to you,
angles.
Dr.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Thank you for
Shout out.
shout out. Thank you, Doctor. Yes. We
Yes,
appreciate your being involved in health.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And where I see myself is kind of in the middle, where I have the students that I'm interacting with every day. And then I have access to, not necessarily President Frank, but some of the other folks that, have some influence on campus where I can say, this is what the students are telling me. And this is what, maybe the direction that we want to go in. And then, the other way around where it says, okay, well, let's think about how we can do this. And maybe we can't do it in this way, but maybe we can do it another way. And then I send that back to the students and vice versa.
Do you feel, is this a sensitive question? Do you feel pushback at all or like frustration or, I mean, how do you deal with say, nope, we're not doing that. It's bad PR. Or
Right.
Does that happen or?
Not in my years that I've been here. I feel grateful to say. I do think that society, in society, there's general pushback, specifically towards harm reduction strategies. I certainly felt that pushback actually when I was at the university in a different position where it was my job to distribute condoms, which I actually see a lot of parallels between the condoms on campus and Narcan.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Right. So are condoms distributed widely on campus?
They are.
So people should get a condom and a Narcan.
And a Narcan, right, all together.
A little in a goodie bag.
A wellness package.
Yeah, a wellness package.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't hate that idea.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
It's honest.
Yes, totally. And, the university was very supportive of the condom distribution. That's been around for a while, but there was, some hesitation, let's say, from others. And that I would feel.
And now there's acceptance.
I think we're moving towards it. Yes. Not full acceptance. There were parents out there that would say,
Not my child.
Right. Not my child. Why are you teaching my child how to have sex? They should be studying. Well, that's not exactly what's happening.
Okay, they're done studying now.
Right. And I think
Right.
that, again, there's a lot of parallels between that and what we're doing related to alcohol and other drugs. Why are you teaching my kid how to drink alcohol? Well, we're not teaching them
There is
how to
a
drink
college
alcohol.
experience that when I sent my kids at the they're going to experience a lot of things, and it's like life.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to hide any of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully they stay safe.
Yeah.
You send your kid out, and it's with a lot of fear and trepidation, but as caregivers, we don't have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that parents are a really important stakeholder in this. And we've had increased efforts in the last year to
tell us about
work
that.
with
How is
parents.
that? How are parents involved in these activities?
Yeah, so not so much once they're on campus, although when our students go home for breaks over the summer, that's an opportunity for parents to have conversations with their student about expectations, and how to stay safe, speaking from their own experiences. But I really think it's also in the years and months leading up to college where you're having those conversations. And we actually just created an entire website that kind of it's a guide to how to start the conversations, what to talk about, conversation starters, things like that, because we acknowledge that that's really hard.
What website is that, Rachel?
So that can be found just on our Sandler Center website, miami.edu/Sandler.
Miami.edu/Sandler.
Yes, or on our Instagram, which we talked about
But
earlier.
not Snapchat. That was
Not Snapchat. No.
So a couple of we're wrapping up.
Yep.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had, or you'd like to answer now about your activities on campus? It's certainly been it's an honor having you here today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. I'm always happy to have any opportunity to talk about the Sandler Center. I think that our students are incredible. And so just any opportunity to show them off, I'm happy to do it.
I've been personally trying to kind of break through this wall now for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And, the pandemic's made it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And then things finally, the universe has to line up.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to comment on our show, they can go to Miami. What's my website? My email? Miller@cnews.net.
Okay.
Sorry, Miller@cnews.net. If they want to sponsor some shows, we have that available. Also, Miami, Miller@cnews.net. And if they're having a problem overall in the community, a non-student with drugs or alcohol, and they don't know where to turn, go to MiamiRecoveryProject.org, MiamiRecoveryProject.org. And before we leave, I want to give a shout out to my son, who you know.
Yes.
So just a little disclaimer: Rachel grew up with my kids, Josh and Sam.
Yeah.
And Josh is in Germany, Sergeant Myers.
Wow.
And I want to thank you for your service, Josh, and be safe. And Rachel, I want to congratulate you on your marriage.
Thank
and
you.
hope you have a wonderful time in your honeymoon. Go do good things, and then come back. And I look forward to working with you more at the U and Sandler Center.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.